What's up, everybody? I'm Yogi Chris, PhD, founder of Ninth Limb Yoga, captain of IMC Nation. I live here with the founder of IMC Nation in Campbell, California. And this next episode is very important to understanding IMC Nation, which is a worldwide movement about spirituality, masculinity, and so many other things using communication skills. This episode's called The First Law of Alchemy. All is mind. A popular thing you could read lots of blogs about, watch lots of vlogs about. There's lots out there about it, but Arash Sapardee-Bazar is world-class at what he does. He's demonstrating in his life through the success of his relationships and influence, collaborations with powerful men, and so many things. The first law of alchemy, all is mind. And if you want to get the fundamental understandings of how to really get the IMC teachings, how to relax in your life and get these integrated mental concepts, then this is definitely a topic for you. And this is why I recycled the episode. It wasn't necessarily the top performing episode, but it's one of my favorite episodes. I remember doing it, and I think you'll get a lot out of it. So as you hear me refer to Science of Spiritual Growth throughout the episode, it's because it's a recycled episode from that show, but you're watching it here on Enlightened Masculinity. So definitely leave a comment and review if you liked it, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on one of our shows. Welcome to the Science of Spiritual Growth. This is a new way to introduce it. This is a song I've been listening to. I'm your host, Yogi Chris, PH motherfucking D, founder of Ninth Limb Yoga, and today we're talking about alchemy, the first law of alchemy. It's a mental universe. Enjoy the beat for a moment. There it is. All right. Now the sound you were just listening to, you were listening to it in your head, in your mind. If you were deaf, you wouldn't have heard it. If you were hypnotized in some way to, like, let's say somehow someone hypnotized you and you don't hear the music that's playing, they can hypnotize you into being deaf. It's like called psychosomatic. You can make your body react to what your mind is telling it to do on some level. So the experience of hearing ends up being in the mind. If a person thought they were deaf, they wouldn't hear. There would be examples of split personalities where one personality is deaf and another one isn't. So it's a mental experience hearing the song. It's a mental experience hearing me talk. It's a mental experience looking at you and looking at all of you. Hold up. Why is this thing so loud? And the mental realm is this invisible substance that's happening between you and life. Life is around you. People are in front of you. The building you're in. I'm getting warm now. Your whole life is in your mind. It's a mental life. You could lose your mind and you lose your life. You lose your identity, your education. I know I've had concussion where I lost that. You lose your mind, but the brain was still there. Everything was still there functioning, so to speak. I mean, I'm sure there was something not happening in the brain, but it's a mental experience. Then your experience, I don't know what your mental experience is. You don't know what my mental experience is. That's why communication happens, where I take my experience and I grab some words, which are just symbols like lines, like you, RS just wrote some Greek script, and it makes sense now. It's epsilon, rho, gamma. So it's ergonomic. I get where the word is. And you took a sound, which we were just listening to music, and music was just, it's this thing in the head. It's this thing in the mind that's happening. And we can symbolize the sound with the letter, and the letters go together and make a word. And so a word is just a code of sounds that are put together that we agree on. We agree that the code of sounds represents chair. Chair means that. It's a sound code, right? Chris. My name is a code of sounds that has symbols, and that's how you'll process, you'll remember it. Okay? So this is Science of Spiritual Growth. Science of Spiritual Growth is my Thursday show. I try to focus on communication as a subject. The other shows, relationships and genetic code, And yoga, or the physical, let's say grounding your awareness, what awareness comes when you start to ground yourself in the body? That's science of peace. Science of spiritual growth is communication, is where I focus on. Communication starts in the mind. It's you imagine what you want to say, or you experience whatever your experience is, and you symbolize it and send it out through the space with some sound waves, or you can write it, but it's still, that's the symbol, or sign language it, but that's still a symbol. And the other person picks up the symbol, interprets it, and recreates the experience in them so they get what you're saying. They duplicate. It's like, it's not even existent. The symbol doesn't exist through the sound, through a communication. But I will actually reconstruct, like if you said chair to me, I would see a chair. I might not see the word, but that happens too sometimes. Somebody says a name or something, I'll see the word of it. I don't see maybe a person yet. So the word is connected with what you're looking at. You can almost read someone's face because the face is expressing what someone's looking at in their mind, is really what it is. But you're also interpreting that in your mind. So it could be, and it is, biased. And this is where we get into like the male-female dynamic, where men more often than women will bias their interpretation of what they're seeing in their favor sexually. Men do that because why? Because our ancestors who did that reproduced more than the ones who didn't. So of course it becomes heritable. So that's the nature of men. Men misread what women do in their favor. A yellow light is a green light. An orange light is a green light. Any fucking thing but a hard, bright, loud red light is a green light in some fucking dimension that the guy is thinking about. I was just thinking of a funny text somebody said the other day. Anyway, I don't want to, he's working on his game. He's trying to come up in game, right? So he says something to the girl, and the girl says, I'm not interested. And so he says, how do you know you're not interested? We haven't even talked yet. It's like, I don't know how she knew, but she knew. Okay. So it's a mental universe. The words are very important. That seems to be, we have an imagination. Words can put our attention. If I say a beige sweater, if I said it was a polo beige sweater if I knew, the more words I knew how to describe like that, those ridges and the cotton, the more words I can give you an experience that recreates it. To the degree that you understand those words, you can recreate the experience in you, in your mind, but then your body reacts to your mind, right? Because that's how you read people's faces. That's why you kick when you're falling asleep and you dream and you're moving. You're reacting to your mind. So if someone is listening to what you're saying, it's going to the degree they understand what you're saying, they're going to create some representation of your words in their mind. It's going to be images, and they're going to feel it. And so you end up creating people's experience by how you talk to them. To the degree they listen, that's where it becomes, now communication is a game of attention. Do you have someone's attention? If you don't have their attention, you can talk at them all day. If you have their attention, you can't get away from their watchful eye. So everything you do is that's why I put so much out there. I want you to see daily. Pretty soon it's going to be a consistent time. I've been working with Apprentice Fabian, actually. That's happening when we get the systems in place. It's going to get close to being like a radio station or like a TV show. Yeah, it's rad. I'm excited for that level of discipline. If I can wake up at 3 a.m. every day, I can do a show at 7 p.m. The only reason I haven't done it is because I really like going out during sunset, and sunset changes through the year. So if I pick a time at some point, it's going to be like a month that I don't get to see. Anyway, that's literally the only reason why I do it. Episode of last week coming out before the show ends. Awesome. So the last episode, and if you catch the recording of this, then follow, we got people, and you should come live. Find me on Instagram, Yoga Bliss Chris, and come live to the show. So it's a mental universe. The words create an experience in you that's felt, an experience really with all your senses to the degree that it has. If I described a song, that you knew, you might hear the song. If you didn't know the song, I could describe the instruments in the song and the qualities of it. You might start to hear it. I create the sound in you. It's an illusion, an auditory illusion made by just random compression waves through the air that we agree that Morse code of air compression waves or whatever means this complex image of something or an orchestra. But if you don't know the language, it's gibberish to you. It's just nonsense. Now, within our language, let's say English, there's going to be dialects, regional, cultural blends. And it depends now, because it's so globalized, what music did you listen to? What television did you watch growing up? What was your clique? What sports did you play? And then now, what's your industry? You have all this language that is part of your industry. If you're an aerospace engineer, or if you're a dog sitter, or if you're internet marketing, or if you're in the medical field, you have all this vocabulary. Each word is an experience. And the experience, I almost want to quiz you guys. You're not going to get it. Damn it. I want to, but you're just not going to get it. Okay. So this is where we get into alchemy, right? And this is really, I don't know if it's the second principle of alchemy comes from Egypt. The history of Egypt is written by a man god named Thoth. Thoth was really an Atlantean who gained immortality. He basically hacked his own body. You know how like Joe Dispenza or whatever, you know this guy Joe Dispenza? So he broke his back and basically for 18 months just imagined himself getting healed, and he healed his own spine. They said he'd never be able to do that. And so he teaches people law of attraction and healing and stuff, like how to imagine it and feel it and like create it and positive thinking, whatever. Like, so imagine if you did that, like just to the senescence of the body and you just reversed your own age kind of thing. Now, why that's super far in imagination, but just get this. All right. Now I'll get more serious. So the words that you speak and hear pulls your attention onto those concepts. So if I'm talking about chairs all day, if I'm a chair salesman, you're filled with all kinds of chair symbols, but nothing to do with sheep. If I'm a sheep herder, nothing to do with syringes. If you work in medicine, like it's such an occasional word to them. Not what if I was a wrestling coach or a yogi, like totally different. Like I'm talking about breathing or whatever. Some people never even do a conscious breath their whole life. Nobody ever says, take a deep inhale, take a deep exhale. Expand your belly when you inhale. Like that's just a zero experience for some people their whole life, and they die. Okay. So that means my attention is pulled onto the diaphragm. It's pulled onto the belly moving. It's pulled onto the experience of all the words I use. Your attention is pulled onto those words, and you create divots in the mind, repeated patterns where you end up, this happens to new moms a lot of time. New moms that just basically their whole job is taking care of the young baby, they'll lose their language, and their language just kind of gets a little atrophy. It gets baby, they get baby talk. If they don't read and practice talking, they lose some of the more sophisticated communication. They get it back. I mean, it's just like you pick it up back on the guitar, but you see that happen. And their experience, it loses those distinctions. Each word, there's no synonym. So each word has a slightly different experience. And here's the question I was going to ask, but you wouldn't get, is what is an experience? Right? What is it? An experience, something in your physical body, you know, some energy, nervous system activity. What is an experience? It's a mental phenomenon. All of those things boil down to it's a frequency. The nervous system, the electricity, the mental experience, the image of the mental experience is a frequency. Think of lofty or elevated thoughts versus heavy down thoughts. There's a measurement going on of that idea, a heavy emotion or a light emotion. There's a measurement of the physical experience. And that's what words do, actually. This is what I get from Arash Bazaar. And in the last Beast Camp, I was telling people my big takeaway was words are the measurement of the experience. Different words measure a different experience. Red is different from magenta or blood red, glossy red, red orange, you know. fit is different from beast. It's a different word. I'm fit, but I'm also a beast. All right. So I measure my experience with some words and I throw it out at you, hoping that you recreate my experience. Or if you start to become more cause, then you'd be like, okay, what experience do I want to create in the person? Let me talk in a way that creates the experience in them. Now, there's so much more to this, and I would teach it more heavily in the silent flute, especially dealing with tonality, that how you change your tone will change the vibratory experience of the words from the other person. It'll pick up your sound. If you smile, it'll change things. How you carry your shoulders and your posture changes how the message is received. But words seems to be the most obvious because it's so discrete. Like we can all look up the definition of a word. We can draw it and agree that that's, unless you have sloppy handwriting, but we can agree. But body language, we can start to dispute. And there's going to be some facts that we can look at, but that's not what we're doing right now. So with the words, I'm encapsulating the experience and I throw it out at you. Now, everybody has their regional words and their local words, and that gives them a local experience. There's a matching between the vibration of the experience and what the word is. The meaning of the word is the vibration of this experience. The meaning of chair is, what does it feel like, a chair? If I say a big chair or a fat chair, a cushy chair, a gray chair, a recliner chair, a seat bench chair, like they all have a slightly different experience. A metal chair, a silk, whatever. And this is where I will start to get into. Originally, this podcast is called The Science of Spiritual Growth, which is a kind of a take on the word Science of Getting Rich, which is this book about basically Christianity and how you get rich on faith or something like that. I didn't read it, actually. It was my co-host that loved the book because his dad loved the book. I didn't want to title it that because the book is already a book. I didn't want to title my show after a book when I didn't read the book and it's not about the book. So we just changed it to Science of Spiritual Growth. And I was like, that's dope. But I've had an idea, this is kind of a tangent, is that a lot of the rich and famous people in the world, especially those that achieved it in this lifetime, are actually, a lot of them are reaping the benefits of good karma of past lives. I know, because what's limiting me from moving forward is just my experiences in this life. And after I clean through that, it's like it comes down to luck. Like when people wish me luck, the only thing that's lucky is really who my parents were. That's the only thing that's lucky about my life. They raised me, and that continues to be lucky, but it has to do with them. But then at some point, it's just me. And it was me all along, but it was in combination with the parents adding in, and that's lucky. I didn't choose that, so I don't think anyway. So there's some qualities that I'm born with, some qualities that are nurtured in me, and then some qualities that I perpetuate, or I continue to learn as I grow. And those qualities come out in my behavior, which gives me the effect of the world. I cause an effect. I don't cause everything. I just have a cause. And I have no control over the outside, but I have infinite control over the inside as far as how I behave. I could behave like white trash right now, or I could behave like a king. Really. I could behave like someone who's afraid of women. I could behave like someone who loves the company of intelligent women. I could behave like somebody who doesn't have a PhD and isn't proud of it, or just say the pride, someone that's proud of their PhD versus someone that's ashamed of their PhD. And it comes out in behavior slightly different, but carried over day after day after day. It gives you a very different result later on. And it was in my attitude towards things, which we symbolize with words. If I said, what's your attitude towards fitness, towards exercise, towards waking up early, towards meat, towards vegetarianism, towards sex, towards money, towards God? The words that come to mind for each of those subjects symbolizes your experience of those subjects. So through communication, I create a map of a person on how they're experiencing the same things that I have different experiences for. But if I care about somebody and I want to have any influence, then I need their map and less of my map, because I already know my map. I'll discover my map as we live, and I find limitations to my mobility, my internal mobility. Whatever is hindering that is not me, because I wouldn't hinder myself if I had the choice. So there's something else in me. Yeah, I get it. It's me, but it's an impression from something from my past that I haven't relooked at. It's the shadow self that's exerting influence over my free will. How much of our free will is not really our free will? We think we have free will, but we're behaving out of patterns, and we are patterned. Our vision narrowed, our perspective of what's possible for us to do is narrowed by the words we've taken on, the words we identify with that would define our life. If we wrote a book about our life, you would use different words than me. That's your life. How mobile are you to use different words? And so you'll start to measure words against other words, that they're not all the same. You'll measure grammar. How do people, not formal grammar of etiquette, but just in a general sense, the spoken grammar of how people put their words together. Grammar is magic, creates a different experience in the end. The sentence creates a different meaning than just each word by itself. So grammar is a magical way of putting words together to create an experience in somebody. You could cast a fear spell on somebody by just speaking the word combination with the right tonality and make them think about it, that they just have to think that you're putting a curse on them. A person is cursed if they think they're cursed. They create the experience of being cursed in them. Like the mother who thinks she's pregnant and starts lactating and finds out she was never pregnant. How does that happen? That's a trip, right? The power of the mind. And that person thinks they're cursed. And I got a guy that won't come to beast camps because he's like, I gotta keep going to Jamaica or whatever to do these like rituals because I'm seriously haunted, man. Like, all right, dude. I mean, what am I gonna say? Even if you saw an object lift and levitate and get thrown across the room, that happens in your mind. The only thing that you couldn't prove, that you'd be able to prove, is it like hits you and you get cut somehow. But even then, is there a witness? Because haven't you seen Fight Club? He beats the shit out of himself, not realizing the whole movie until the end that it wasn't the other guy. He was beating the shit out of himself. You never saw the movie? So in the movie, he meets Tyler Durden on a plane. Long story short, he's having a midlife crisis breakdown about how weak society is. He's so disappointed. He keeps going to all these self-help meetings that he ends up his subconscious creates an alter ego that he faces one day, and he has dialogue with him, and they form a relationship. And the whole movie, they like build a temple similar to this actually, and they create a club of guys that recreationally beat the shit out of each other because society's so weak. So that's where they get their licks in. And at the end of the movie, near the end, he faces Tyler Durden and realizes that Tyler Durden's not real, that he made him up the whole time. And that's why he was confusing people. Now, that seems like it's just a skit, like that's just fake. But I was just listening to the interview of Yossi Ginsburg, who was just a 20-year-old or 21-year-old guy that went to the Amazon rainforest with 3 of his buddies. They got lost. A storm happened, flood happened. He got swept down for like 18 days. He's lost in the Amazon. He gets like eaten by red ants and his feet and hands are just destroyed. He's emaciated. Like he has no way to hunt. He's not good at it. He's basically starving to death. The last 3 days he was ready to give up because a plane went over and it didn't see him. He tried to like yell to it and he was so discouraged. But then he looked to his side and he saw a naked woman crying. And so he takes her and he's like, what's going on? She's a local tribeswoman. He doesn't know how to communicate, but he takes her, he builds a shelter for them. He collects fruit. He finds a way. At night, they're very cold. They huddle for warmth. For 3 days, he takes care of this woman. And then he finds one of the guys survives. 2 of the guys died. The other guy survived, and they were in a search party. They come across each other. They find each other, and he turns and tries in excitement to tell the woman wasn't there. She was never there. He imagined her. But he would say, I didn't imagine her. I mean, I know that it was imagined, but I didn't make that happen. So is it my imagination? So it doesn't matter if it's a hallucination. Your body is reacting to it. So you need to guide your body into the way of being that you want to be by holding the images that help you get there. That's where we change our language. The language is how we transmit new images. You can look at pictures and whatever, but that's going to be limited if you don't know how to describe the picture, because it'll be isolated to your own experience, or you'll have to show everybody the picture to get the message across. It's when you begin to be able to describe the thing, describe your vision, describe the emotion, describe the fashion, describe what you're wanting, describe your needs. That gives you clarity, and it helps the other person get clarity. It's that game of communication. It's a game of communication, which is a game of also imagination, because you need to create the experience that you want to communicate. Otherwise, it's just you're putting words on a pre-recorded experience. If you don't create your experience, you're just going off of what the body generates, which is just a recording of what's happened to it. It's just operating subconsciously. So if you want to change your destiny, because if you don't want to change your destiny, then don't worry about it. Don't even use your imagination. Just keep living life however you've lived life, and you're going to get a modern rendition of your parents. It's going to be modern because there's modern technology and the influences are different and news is different and everything. But until you start to imagine a different way of being, you're just going down it's a ravine that's already been dug out for you. It's a man-made river, so to speak. You want to change it, you need to imagine something different. Now, your vocabulary helps you imagine. Study helps you imagine. You need to expand outside of where you've normally been. And I think that's basically, that's the meat of it, really. And that's the first law of Hermetics. That's alchemy. Alchemy is the first. Here was the alchemy of it. It's just the base. It barely even felt like it, really. But here's what it was, is everything you experience is in your mind. There is an outside world, but not to you. To you, the outside world is in your mind. Everything outside of you is in your mind. Everything you're aware of is inside your mind. If you're not aware of it, it's not in your mind. And it might still be there, but you're not aware of it, so it doesn't matter. As soon as you become aware of it, it's in your mind. You're aware of it in your mind. If you touch it, you're touching it in your mind. Because again, I could be numb. You could hypnotize me, so I'm numb. I could sever a nerve, so I'm numb. It's not me touching it, it's the nerve, but I can also be hypnotized off the nerve. I could not be touching something. I could not even have an arm and have a ghost limb, and I'll be touching something. It's a mental experience. Your whole life is in your mind. Your whole past, whatever age you are, doesn't really exist. It only exists in your mind. It's done. That's like Eckhart Tolle. The only thing that exists is the present moment. But we use the tech of imagine because we're pulling ourselves into our future. It's not just present, because present moment creates a population of slaves that lets what's happening happen. And that's not acceptable. Present moment needs to acknowledge cause and effect and take action against that. I don't see too many present moment practitioners fighting evil. But the people fighting evil could use some practice in presence, right? So you're not reacting so much. The practice of presence gives you the awareness of the feeling that's happening in the body before it gets expressed as your words. When you express your feeling as words, it creates the feeling in other people because the words are the symbols of the experience. So when you speak in anger, other people get angry. When you speak out of jealousy, they get jealous. When you speak out of sadness, people get sad. When you're bored, other people get bored. It's not just, you're not a fucking empath. It's just you don't know how to not listen or not take on when someone says something. Or to challenge it, really. A lot of empaths are just spineless. They don't know how to challenge what's being said, internally or externally. They don't know how to challenge the other person. Or if somebody says something, I can challenge something internally without externally challenging it. This might be something like if my grandpa says something I disagree with. Internally, I'll negate it, but externally, I'm respectful. You know? Negated is like a math term. So it comes in as some energy. I send internally, I talk to it and I send a different energy that neutralizes. It negates the energy. So I don't have the residue of what somebody said echoing in my system later, right? That's what you got to do on a slave planet, because that's kind of what I was saying actually earlier is, but I didn't get to, is that the world you're told is not the world you see. You would see a different world if it wasn't for the words that keep pulling your attention onto them. What if you had been told genies exist your whole life instead of fairies aren't real? Ghosts, dragons. What would you think about? I mean, now is the Great Awakening. So 200,000 FISA warrants are about to be unsealed. A lot is about to shift. And now that many of us, if you're following here, I don't know if this is your first recording or whatever, it's something new. But if you've become red-pilled on the human trafficking pandemic, that's the real pandemic of the planet, the Disney agenda, the CIA agenda through Hollywood, all of those things, Pizzagate, afterwards, looking back on it, I forgot what my point was. I had a point there, actually, but I forgot what it was. This is just kind of dragging on. It's a wonderful thing. It's just the first principle of alchemy, that everything is happening in your mind. When you want to start manipulating vibration, that's in your mind. Everything, gender, polarity, rhythm, correspondence, meaning cause and effect. Actually, cause and effect is a different thing. Correspondence is as above, so below. The universe is in fractals. These all exist inside the mind, which is the first principle. All is mind. If it's not, it's going to be difficult to manipulate. But once it's inside your mind, you can manipulate your own mind. That's like what I said when I neutralize. I talk to my own mind when I hear the sentence come in. Right? So if you want practices on how to be sensitive to what you're saying to yourself so that you hear it when you see what you're imagining, become sensitive to how your body is reacting to your imagination in what you're thinking about. That's what I do in the silent flute. You're going to get better sleep, better meditation, better communication, just better wellness. Your hormone system will rebalance when you catch your self-talk. So many great benefits. I have tons of testimonies. So catch that at ninthlimb.com. And I'm going to end it here. We're not going to do any Q&A. It was great that everybody showed up. There's a bunch of people online, different channels. Let me check Facebook and see what that's all about. Oh, man. There's a few people on Facebook, so that's awesome. All right, so thanks for tuning in. Catch the recording, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Science of Spiritual Growth. Namaste.